name is Armin. I'm 37 years old. I used to work in the administration department of a private company. The salary wasn't much, but enough for food, rent, and saving a little bit here and there. Then the pandemic hit, efficiency measures followed, and the termination letter came all at once. Since then, I've been unemployed, 8 months now. Days felt heavy. Mornings were aimless, nights restless. I became gloomy, quick to anger, and increasingly felt like a failure as the head of my family. Then an opportunity came, a job opening as a night guard at an archive warehouse owned by a government agency. It was located on the outskirts of town. No strange requirements, just a man who could work alone overnight. The interview was brief. A man in a grey shirt handed me a folder and said, "The warehouse hasn't been used for a long time. You just need to keep watch. The previous guard suddenly quit." That was it. I started working that very night. The warehouse stood on an open field, surrounded by wild bushes and dirt roads rarely traveled by vehicles. The building was large but old, the paint peeling, the window glass thick with dust. Inside, metal shelves lined up tightly, filled with piles of old documents and files. It smelled damp, cold, and silent. My first night went normally. Quiet, yes, but nothing more. I sat in a small room near the entrance, watching the CCTV screens showing empty hallways. But the more I stayed on watch, the stranger things I started to feel. At first, the sound of a cabinet opening by itself, papers falling even though there was no wind, an old typewriter unplugged, suddenly typing a single letter. 7. And then there was one hallway, the farthest one. Its light always off. They had replaced the bulb many times, but it stayed dark. On the third night, I saw her for the first time. A woman's figure standing still at the end of the dark hallway. Her hair was long, her body motionless. I thought it was a shadow. But when I approached, the figure vanished. No footsteps. No trace. Since then, my dreams changed. I was always trapped in an old room, surrounded by people wearing old-fashioned uniforms. They only pointed in one direction, a door marked number 7. Because I just wanted to work and earn money here, I tried to ignore it to keep myself safe. But the security cameras began to capture things that couldn't be explained. Faint movements in empty corridors, doors suddenly opening on their own, soft crying sounds coming from the archive storage. I needed answers. During the day, I gathered the courage to ask the cleaning staff. He paused for a long moment before finally saying, "Number 7 used to be the archive for investigations of staff who disappeared. They say there was a suicide case, a woman, but everything was quickly covered up." The next night, I found door number 7 unlocked. The key was just hanging there. Inside, it was dark and stuffy. Shelves covered in dust. I turned on my flashlight and started looking through old files. Then I saw it. A faded photo. A female staff member with a faint smile. Her face was exactly the same as the figure I saw in the hallway that night. Her name, Esther. Goosebumps ran down my spine, and a strange feeling crept in. Terrified, I ran out of there straight to the guard post. But after that, everything changed. I could no longer sleep peacefully. My dreams became like pieces of a film connected one after another. I was sitting in an interrogation room, being questioned repeatedly by an unseen voice.
Do you know the truth?
The crying from the archive room grew louder, no longer just in my dreams. And one night I tried to leave early, but all the keys were gone, as if something or someone refused to let me go. My last night there, I will never forget it. Every light suddenly went out. My flashlight flickered. The dark hallways felt like they were closing in, blocking every way out. I rushed to the front door, locked. Every door was locked. And when I turned around, door number 7 was open again. My steps grew heavy as if something was pulling me in. The door closed behind me. I was trapped, dark, cold. A breath against the back of my neck. A whisper, soft but piercing.
I'm not finished.
Somehow I managed to break a small window in the back and climb out. My hands were bleeding, my body shaking, but I kept running, never once looking back at that building. The next morning, I returned to the office. With a weak voice and trembling body, I simply said, "I quit. I can't do this anymore." They checked the CCTV footage from that night. They said it showed me talking to myself, laughing, crying, then locking myself inside room number 7 for nearly 5 hours. It's been months since that night. I haven't gone back to work. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear the sound of typing, even though there's no typewriter in my house. This afternoon, I casually opened a job listing site, and there, I saw an ad. Night guard wanted, archive warehouse, attractive salary, night shift. Previous guard resigned. And all I could think was, are they still looking for the next victim?
It's been almost 2 years since I started working as a night guard at a small boutique hotel perched on the cliffs of Santorini, overlooking the vast, dark Aegean Sea. The hotel has only 6 exclusive rooms, a quiet retreat for wealthy travelers seeking solitude. As the night guard, my duties are simple: ensure security, respond to guest needs, and maintain peace after the receptionist leaves for the day. Most nights are quiet, honestly, even boring. I usually spend my time reading behind the front desk, sipping coffee, and occasionally glancing at the CCTV screen, which rarely shows anything more than empty hallways. But everything changed on the first night of last week. At exactly 2:14 a.m., the front desk phone rang softly. The digital display showed the call was coming from room 3. At first, I didn't think much of it. The voice on the other end was that of a young woman, soft and slightly hoarse. She asked for a cup of hot tea, saying she felt a cold coming on. Still half asleep, I noted her request and brought a tray of warm tea up to room 3 on the second floor. But the moment I arrived, something felt off. The door was shut tight, the lights were off, and there was no sign of movement inside. I checked the guest list for that night. Room 3 had been empty for the past 3 days. A young woman and her child had checked out earlier than scheduled. According to the evening receptionist, they had complained about strange disturbances in the room before leaving in a hurry. I figured it was probably just a system glitch. But the next night, at exactly the same time, the phone rang again. This time, the request was for fresh towels. And the night after that, the same voice asked for flu medicine. Each time I checked, room 3 remained dark and empty. There were no signs of life, no sound from within, but the call logs always showed the same origin: room 3. A few nights later, stranger things began to happen. Inside the elevator, I caught a glimpse of a child's reflection in the mirror, standing still in the corner, head slightly tilted, staring straight ahead. But every time I turned around to look, the figure vanished. And when I checked the CCTV footage, there was no one else in the elevator, just me. I started having trouble sleeping. The daytime hours I usually spent resting were now filled with an uneasy tension. It felt like something was watching me. Sometimes I could hear the sound of tiny footsteps echoing through the second-floor hallway. Even though all the other rooms were clearly closed and the guests were fast asleep. On the 5th night, I decided I could no longer be a passive observer. I prepared a tray with warm tea, just like the voice had asked before, and carefully made my way to the 2nd floor. As I approached room 3, a deep unease settled over me. The hallway lights flickered, and just as I reached the door, it slowly creaked open. No wind, no sound, just the door moving on its own. The room was dark, no sound except breathing, heavy and slow, like someone sick or deeply asleep. I turned on the flashlight on my phone and stepped inside cautiously. Everything looked tidy, untouched, but the breathing was coming clearly from the wardrobe. With trembling hands, I opened the closet door and my eyes caught something that didn't belong. A wooden panel at the back, slightly ajar, like it could be opened, as if worn by time or deliberately moved by someone trying to hide something. Driven by something I couldn't explain, I pulled it open and discovered a narrow, dark space, probably an old service tunnel, long forgotten. But that wasn't what froze me in place. Inside were 2 bodies, a woman and a small child, wrapped in hotel blankets. Their faces looked peaceful, too peaceful. There was no smell, no blood, just silence. They looked like they had only died last night. I could barely breathe. My body was shaking, cold sweat running down my back. I rushed back to the front desk and immediately called the hotel owner, who lived just a few blocks away. He arrived about 30 minutes later. His face tightened as I explained what I had seen, but what he said next chilled me to the core. "Dimitris," he said softly, locking eyes with me. "Room 3 has been sealed for over a year. No one's checked in there since. The last guest in that room was a young man who murdered 2 other guests, a mother and her child. They tried to hide in that room, maybe hoping it would keep them safe. But he found them, and he killed them. The police discovered the scene days later. Since then, we've never rented out room 3 again." I could barely process what I was hearing. I tried showing him proof, the call logs, the tea requests, even the CCTV footage. But everything I had seen before was gone. No calls from room 3, no movement in the halls, just silence, as if it had all been an illusion. Since that night, I never answer the phone when it rings at 2 a.m., because the ringing still comes, every night. My coworkers now avoid any talk about room 3. Whenever I ask, they go silent or force a weak smile, faces pale, like they're guarding a truth too heavy to speak. One of them, Eleni, once whispered to me, "You know, sometimes I smell warm tea in the hallway, even when no one's made any. And when I bring my son here, he says he sees a little friend waiting by the elevator, all alone." Now, whenever I pass by the elevator mirror and catch the faint reflection of a small child standing quietly behind me, I keep my head down and keep walking. Because maybe he just wants something he never got in life. A cup of warm tea, or the chance to truly check out.
My name is Weera. It's been almost 2 weeks since I started working as the night guard at a traditional villa in Ubud, Bali. This villa once belonged to a respected woman, Madame Ayu Mas. She passed away more than 20 years ago, but according to the older staff, the villa is still guarded, not just by the living. The villa is tucked away from the main road, surrounded by tropical gardens and rice fields. Its structure is old, made mostly of aged teak wood, with stone guardian statues placed at every corner of the courtyard. When I first arrived, the air felt cool and peaceful, but also as if something was watching. There's one rule here, one that must never be skipped, no matter what. Every night, an offering must be placed beneath the photo of Madame Ayu Mas. It's a simple ritual: flowers, incense, and a small snack. They say it's a form of respect, but most of us know it's also a form of asking permission. For those unfamiliar with this culture, offerings are symbolic gifts to ancestral spirits meant to honor them and ask them not to disturb the lives of the living. My first nights were calm. The villa is beautiful. Wooden interiors, intricate carvings, and a garden always filled with the scent of frangipani flowers. I quickly settled into the night routine, checking lights, locking doors, placing the offering, then sitting at the post with the occasional patrol. There were never any issues. I even began to think the job was too easy. Sometimes I'd sit back with a book or watch movies on my phone, but I knew that kind of comfort never lasts for long. Then the long holiday came. The villa was packed. Some guests were foreigners, others were local families. I was asked to help carry luggage, greet late-night arrivals, and tighten security, since one of the other guards suddenly went on leave. That night was hectic. And yes, I forgot. I forgot to place the offering. I didn't realize it until the next morning while going over my checklist from the night before, but I brushed it off. It's just one night, right? What harm could it do? The following night, things returned to normal, at least at first. Sometime past midnight, the phone at the guard post rang. It was sudden and sharp, jolting me. I picked it up. No sound at first, just silence. Then faintly, like wind brushing through leaves, a woman's voice, soft and distant. "The offering, child. Please, the offering." I froze. "Hello? Who is this?" No reply. The line went dead. I thought maybe it was a wrong number or some guest playing a prank. But the next night, the phone rang again. Same voice. Same words, a pleading tone. My heart began to race, and on the third night, just as the phone rang again, before I even touched the receiver, I heard her voice. This time, it didn't come from the phone, it came from inside the villa. Close, far too close. But the disturbances didn't stop there. A vase in the main hallway suddenly toppled over and shattered, even though there was no wind. One of the CCTV cameras caught a strange white flicker right in front of the altar where the offering was usually placed. Even one of the foreign guests asked me, "Was there a woman singing last night?" I heard it from my balcony. Sounded like it came from the back garden. I didn't know what to say. On the fourth night, I felt like something was following me during patrol. Soft footsteps behind me, stopping whenever I stopped. One of the mirrors in an empty room fogged up on its own, as if a cold breath had touched the glass. I looked at my reflection, and for just a split second, I saw a woman in a kabaya standing in the hallway behind me, still and silent, watching. I turned around instantly. Nothing, no one, but the scent of burning incense hung in the air, from nowhere. The next morning, as I was about to head home, I ran into Pa Komang, the morning guard who'd been working there for over 15 years. "You've been on duty the past 3 nights, right?" he asked. I nodded, exhausted. He gave me a serious look. "You forgot the offering, didn't you? It happened to me too once. 3 nights of disturbances, nightmares. Even my child came down with a fever. Since then, I never forget again." I lowered my head in shame. It all made sense now. Everything was connected, and I was the cause of it. That night, I prepared the offering again, this time more carefully. Frangipani flowers, sweet incense, a small cake, and a glass of water. I placed it gently beneath the photo of Ibu Ayu Mas. I bowed my head for a moment and whispered softly, "I'm sorry I forgot, Boo. I know this isn't just tradition. Thank you for the reminder." Maybe it was just in my mind, but that night, the villa felt different, quieter. No phone calls, no strange noises, no shattered vases. Even the wind seemed to flow more gently. The next morning, I told the other staff everything. They just exchanged quiet glances and slowly nodded. Turns out, I wasn't the only one. Some of the older staff had seen a woman's shadow wandering the garden at night, or heard the soft sound of gamelan music coming from the empty hall. Since then, I've never forgotten again. I even set a daily alarm on my phone, right at sunset, just to make sure I remember. And I left a small note in the guard post. "To the next night guard, don't forget the offering for Ibu Ayu Mas. This place is still protected, and she's still with us." And ever since that night, I've started noticing the little things I used to ignore. The wind that suddenly stops, the creaking of bamboo, the scent of flowers that arrives too strong, too suddenly. They could all be signs. This villa is no ordinary place. It's a home watched over by unseen rules. And anyone who stays here must know how to knock politely. Now I understand. The offering isn't just a ritual. It's the key that lets the living and the dead exist side by side, in peace.